My apologies. I had the Bremen Town Musicians main, I guess, theme, whatever, stuck in my head. Anyway, hello. It's me again with another book review. Let me try and adjust the camera proper so you can see me, but not see me simultaneously, because I'm not that type of person whatsoever. We'll see. There we are. Yes, I'm back here with yet another book review. It's been a bit since I've done one of these, about a week or two, I believe. And as I recall, last book I reviewed was by James Hiltman. That was the story of Dr. Wessel. This book is actually one that is, I suppose, among a class of books that have, I suppose, received their respective renown, but aren't necessarily read nowadays. And it is also part of a genre that, I suppose, encompasses man in his exploratory fancies, which happen to occur most often in the late 19th and early 20th century in as of yet unexplored regions of the earth, mainly in countries replete with jungle and unknown people and animals and all that sort. And surprisingly, I'm surprised that I actually now just got down to reading it after so many years. It took me this long, considering that I do like such books as Sir Arthur Conan Doyle's The Lost World and Paul du Chaillu's Explorations and Adventures in Equatorial Africa. But, and I figured there was no other review of this book on YouTube, and I thought I may as well be the first to go ahead and just share with you people just how wonderful this experience was for me. And that book in particular is Green Mansions by William Henry Hudson. So, what exactly is it that, I don't know, most people don't seem to really, that most people are unaware of, why it is that people have not reviewed this book at all. I'm not exactly sure why, really, because in truth I found it a perfectly engaging, wonderful, moving story, and that story I shall detail. It's essentially about a man, a Venezuelan, by the name of Abel de Arganzola, I believe that's how you say it, who tries to rebel against his, I suppose, government, and does not succeed and is, I suppose, on the run, and therefore decides to escape to the jungles of Guyana, there in South America, and basically spend his days exploring the bush and that with which he was always fascinated in his youth, but never really got down to actually experiencing for himself until now. Along this journey, he encounters a fairly peaceable tribe of Indians in the Paraguay region, who take him on as I suppose, one of their own. And, he goes on many hunting expeditions and such with them and all of that, and learns the ways of the Indian. And basically somebody who was a very civilized white man, because he was originally from Spain, but anyhow, it's neither here nor there, sort of, those sensibilities are sort of dissolved, and what is left over is, I suppose, the innate savagery that is within us all. During his time spent in with this tribe of Indians, he happens to go on a trek into this one bit of wilderness that happens to be, for a great part, unexplored by said Indians, because it happens, I suppose, to be a superstition with them that there inhabits in those environs a mysterious sort of entity, the daughter of the DD, I believe that's what they call it, who, when they shoot arrows at it, throws them back and evidently kills them and all that. So none of the Indians, that is, trek that territory. But our protagonist Abel does, and many a time he is, I suppose, greeted with the melodious chant of an unknown creature concealed within the wilderness, and for many days tries to get it to expose itself to him, and is often unsuccessful, until one day when, just walking out into the bush, not with a care in the world, he happens to stumble upon this girl, this mysterious girl with a dress woven from spider's silk and hair like a cloud, and with skin that happens to be, very changeable in color and such, and is very vivid and all of that. Evidently, he happens to be fascinated with her in a sort of endearing, but later on a romantic way. And when first spotting this girl, he is, I suppose, bitten by a coral snake, and therefore flees from her sight into the bush, and is lost and such, and actually ends up falling off an escarpment and losing consciousness. And eventually he is revived, and by this old man named Rulfo, who happens to be part of one of the Christian settlements that have been set up in South America at the time. And evidently, this girl, who now is revealed to be called Rima, happens to be in company with this old man and is in fact his granddaughter. And there is quite a lot of mystery surrounding her origin. And character Abel tries to get that out of the old man Rulfo, because he's fascinated by this, I suppose, bird girl with the melodious voice and all that. In the novel, he flits back and forth between the settlement with Rulfo and Rima, the little encampment that they have in the rainforest, and the Indian village who took him on as one of their own. And as the days wear on, we find out more about Rima, and that this whole her whole existence and such, and her birth and everything, and it eventually is revealed that she finally figures out where it was she originated from, as well as Abel figures this out as well, and the three of them intend to journey to this mountain range called Ria Lama, where evidently her people, because as of yet she is the last of a race that really is not given any explanation whatsoever, but is, I suppose, beyond the ethereal in a sense. And they journey for several days across the jungle in search of it. I'm not going to say anything more about this book, because I think everybody out there, if you've not already, read it, because you will not regret it. I'm going to try and give more insight into, I guess, the themes and such of this book in this review, because I don't tend to do that very often. But, as Abel spends more time in the wilderness, he tends to take on as I said, the proclivities of the savage until he himself is rendered one, and I suppose that feigned veil of white privilege is no longer within sight of him, and that sort, which really proves to anybody that no matter what your race happens to be, we're not all that different. And among all of the, I suppose, romance between Abel and Rima, and all this conflict with the Indians and all of that, and this mystery behind her origin, there are, in fact, very captivating descriptions of the jungles and rainforest described here by Hudson, which is something I neglected to point out in my review of The Tragedy of Korosko by Sir Arthur Conan Doyle, in which he describes the desert in very grandiose, coruscating detail, which I encountered here. Let's see, I'm going to go ahead and read you a passage right here. As I crossed the savannah, I played with this fancy, but when I reached the ridgy eminence to look down once more on my new domain, that fancy changed to feeling so keen that it pierced to my heart and was like pain in its intensity, causing me... Okay, that's not quite too... There, let's see. I'm trying to see if I can find a passage here. It's been... Let's see, where the hell... There was one. Let's see, did I lose it? Yeah, okay, here it is. Page 57 of chapter 5. It was an exceedingly bright day, without cloud, but windy, and finding myself in a rather open part of the wood, near its border where the breeze could be felt, I sat down to rest on the lower part of a large branch, which was half broken, but still remained attached to the trunk of the tree, while resting its terminal twigs on the ground. Just before me, where I sat, grew a low, wide-spreading plant, covered with broad, round, polished leaves, and the roundness, stiffness, and perfectly horizontal position of the upper leaves made them look like a collection of small platforms or round tabletops placed nearly on a level. Through the leaves, to the height of a foot or more above them, a slender, dead stem protruded, and from a twig At its summit depended a broken spider's web, a minute dead leaf that had become attached to one of the loose threads, and threw its small but distinct shadow on the platform leaves below. And as it trembled and swayed in the current of air, the black spot trembled with it, or flew swiftly over the bright green surfaces, and was seldom at rest. Now as I sat looking down on the leaves and the small dancing shadow, scarcely thinking of what I was looking at, I noticed a small spider with a flat body and short legs creep cautiously out onto the upper surface of a leaf. Its pale red colour, barred with velvet black, first drew my attention to it, for it was beautiful to the eye, and presently I discovered that this was no web-spinning sedentary spider, but a wandering hunter that captured its prey like a cat, by stealing on its concealed and making a rush or spring at the last. There are other descriptions that I see here. In fact, I will read you from where the title is derived here. And caring not in that solitude to disguise my feelings from myself and from the wide heaven that looked down and saw me, for this is the sweetest thing that solitude has for us, that we are free in it and no convention holds us, I dropped on my knees and kissed the stony ground, then casting up my eyes, thanked the author of my being for the great gift of that wild forest, those green mansions where I have found so great a happiness. And this book is like that all the way through, written beautifully, describing, I suppose, the environs of the bush, and really just this sort of yearning relationship between Abel and Rima, him trying to find out more about her and such, and evidently when he does, I suppose the very dark turn that is introduced there is very good as well. Anyway, I've rambled enough about this book. It's around 17 minutes, and it can take forever to upload. But anyhow, that was my review of Green Mansions by William Henry Hudson. I hope you've enjoyed it and will pick up this book for yourself. Took me several years actually to get around to reading it, as I said, but I'm very glad I did. And this is easily now one of my probably top, if not top 5, then most likely top 10 favorite books of all time. So thank you very much and have yourselves a good day.